Lesson 35, solving quadratic equations, number 1. So in order to solve quadratic equations, you want to know about the zero product property. It's very important that you realize that when two numbers multiply to get 0, then one of them equals 0. Because that's the only way you can multiply to get 0. So if we were to find the zeros of the function f of x equals 9x squared minus 64, you would just set this equal to 0. Factor, this is a difference of two squares. Use the zero product property, which states either 3x minus 8 equals 0 or 3x plus 8 equals 0, and solve for x. So here x would be 8/3 or x would be negative 8/3. Another example says if you have x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0, we want to solve for x. So since it equals 0, it would be good if we had factors, so we could set each factor equal to 0. So here we have x minus 5 equals 0, or x minus 5 equals 0, which is the same thing, so x equals 5. These are quadratic functions, which means that they are parabola shaped. If a parabola is above the x-axis or below and going in the opposite direction, like they're not going to cross the x-axis at all, then there are 0 zeros. So there's no zeros if it doesn't cross the x-axis. If it is sitting right on the x-axis and either opening upwards or opening downwards, then there will be 1 0, and it'll be that point where it is intersecting the x-axis. And then of course your parabola can cross in two places on the x-axis, and that's when you would have 2 zeros. Tan.
Do you mean by zeros where it hits the x?
Intercepts.
Yep.
Because when it hits the y, there's a 0 too.
When it hits the y, that's when x is 0. We're trying to find the zeros of the function. That means when the function is 0.
Okay,
so that means when
I was
y.
confused. I thought you meant the coordinate point.
Yeah.
Like when there was a 0.
No, we're talking about the function itself.
Yeah, ignore that.
Okay. So you can work backwards. If you're given the zeros, you can find the function. So here's an example. If the zeros are negative 3/2 and 4. So the way you work backwards, you say, okay, well, x equals negative 3/2, and we want to get it to where there's a 0 on this side. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2. We're just doing everything, oh, that's a times. Times 2. Anyway, 2x equals negative 3. I want a 0, so I have to add 3 to both sides. So I get 2x plus 3 equals 0. So there's one of my factors of my function. The other one was x equals 4. We need a 0 here, so we subtract 4. X minus 4 equals 0. So we take our two factors, multiply them together, and we have our function. So f of x equals 2x squared minus 8x plus 3x, so minus 5x minus 12. And that is the function that has the two zeros that are negative 3/2 and 4. Whoops, I forgot to say equals 0. Yes,
Well,
Correct.
Couldn't, on the first equation, couldn't that be x plus 3 divided by 2 equals 0? Or could it
yes, it could have been, yes, you can do that.
just, wait, are they the same equation or is it
Yeah,
different?
it's the same thing. If you add 3/2 to both sides, and then you put that here, x plus 3/2, when you do out your multiplying, you're gonna end up with fractions here,
Oh.
which is a lot easier. Just get rid of them and put them in
Just
whole
get rid of
numbers.
the-
Yeah,
Makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah.
This is very smart.
Yeah.
I did go to school for this, but not for teaching. Okay, sorry. We are going to end our lesson.